Let's talk about surprise. Surprise, I think, is oftentimes overlooked, but it is an extremely important part of the encounter structure in old school essentials or basic expert style old school D&D games. Let me explain. When you look at the encounter procedures, you'll notice that one of the first things you do is check for surprise. What does surprise do? Surprise gives whoever is the surprising team or side, if there is one combat round to do something. After that round is over, it is assumed that both sides become aware of each other, and the encounter then takes place as it would be as if neither side is surprised. This isn't part of a wandering creature procedure. This is for every encounter, whether it is a wandering creature encounter, whether it is a staged encounter in a room, hallway, or other place. It doesn't matter. Surprise is always rolled. This is important because when we look at a lot of encounters, one of the things that GMs will often lament about old school encounters are these gotcha moments where a monster will suddenly appear, do something, bite somebody, spit at them, and it ends up being a save or die type effect. Player character fails their save and they're dead. And it's like, oh my gosh, look at this gotcha encounter, how horrible it was. But I might ask, did you roll for surprise? Because oftentimes I think surprise ends up being one of these factors that GMs will take for granted when I don't think they should. Monsters who are stealthy will have write-ups or notes in their write-ups, usually saying something like, hey, we'll surprise in 1 and 3 instead of 1 and 2. And that is accounting for their advantages because maybe they have camouflage or other sorts of fictional positioning, like they're hidden among the stalactites. But we shouldn't be just giving them that surprise for free because that surprise is a big mitigating factor for that monster's attacks. If we have a poison spider who can just drop down, land on somebody's shoulders, give them a quick bite, and kill them, how can we mitigate that? By the fact that they're not going to surprise everybody. They're going to be at least 3, 4 out of 6 times, depending on whether it's 1 and 2 on surprise, which would be a 33% chance by default, or whether it's, say, 3 out of 6 surprise, which would be 50%. That someone's going to look up and say, oh my gosh, poison spider, let's move, scatter. So we don't want to forget about surprise. Surprise is important. And if you want to think about it in this way, surprise can be like that danger sense, that tingling on the back of your neck, the hairs on your arm standing up, because there are going to be situations in which a creature is hidden but still doesn't surprise the party. And I think this is important. I think a lot of GMs might go, well, it's hidden up there in the dark. They can't see it, so therefore it gets surprised for free. But that's not the way the rules are supposed to work. And it's a bit unfair because I think, as often has been noted in our own lives and in fiction, this idea that you don't know that who's watching you or where they're watching you from, but you know that you're being watched. And so you're a little bit more alert. You don't know what's in that darkness. Of course, you're exploring some cave, some cavern, some ruin. The odds are there are going to be things out there. Then you start feeling it tingling, and now you're aware. You're looking around. It's not unfair to give that surprise, and it's not taking anything away from the monster to give them that surprise, and vice versa. It's not unfair to give the monster a surprise check. Sometimes luck is on your side. The other important factor is surprise is 1 round. Whoever is surprising can move up to their movement in the round. If they're in position to attack either missile or melee, they can do that, but that's it. It's not multiple rounds. It's not multiple distances. The party doesn't have to roll for surprise again. It's 1 round. The other thing you need to keep in mind is the distance involved. When you're rolling for a wandering creature, it can be up to 120 feet away when you roll for surprise. That would be that 3d6 times 10. So pretty much in any space, wherever that monster happens to be positioned, whether it's near the party or far from the party, you're going to want to roll for the surprise. Unless you think that monster is more than 120 feet away, in which case they're not really in the same room as the party anyway. So there's no distance that really is too far in a practical level in a dungeon not for you to roll surprise. Surprise also doesn't mean, it has been changed in later editions to be how close the creatures are to you, at least in the dungeon. When you go to the expert set, then surprise does dictate distance, but surprise does not dictate distance in the basic rules for the dungeon. So a monster can be far and have surprised the party, but then remember, they can only use 1 round of movement, so they can't go from 120 feet to 10 feet unless they're really fast and go and bite somebody. They got to play by the rules, which is, again, another mitigating factor. You walk into this big cavern, there are dangerous things hanging from the stalactites. Well, where are they in relation to the party? Maybe they're nearby, in which case, yeah, they can probably drop on someone's head and try to smother them in 1 round, but maybe they're far, vertically and horizontally, in which case, well, they can move or they can not move. But after that 1 combat round, they're going to be pointed out in some way. There are sort of save or suck situations in old school D&D. Can't avoid it. They're there, and you can decide if you want to play them that way or not. But they become compounded when when the game has procedures that we decide for one reason or another to ignore. Sometimes we're ignoring them because we think it's logical. Sometimes we're ignoring them because we don't like them. There are a myriad of reasons why we might choose to ignore them, but I would argue don't. If you want to look at it and say, well, it's just like that spider sense. It's a danger sense. It's your natural sense of self-preservation that kicks in at some point when you're not sure what's going on, but you know something's not right. However you want to define it, really think about it and play with it and see how it rolls, see how it works before you decide to arbitrarily say, nah, I'm not going to give them a surprise roll. Sip of coffee for the working man. Surprise. Use it, but don't abuse it. Game on. Talk to you later.